Hey friends, welcome to the Time for Living podcast, your ultimate guide to finding the time you need to crush your business dreams while still having time to live your one beautiful life. I'm your host, Lucy Clark, a devoted boy mum, dedicated business owner and time-finding expert. Say goodbye to that I'm too busy mindset that's holding you back from growing your online business. No more feeling overwhelmed or stuck in the same place year after year. Each week, we'll dive deep into strategies for being intentional with your precious time so you can hit those business goals while still making time for yourself and your family. If you're ready to create more time, get practical tips and prioritize the steps that will make the biggest impact on your business and life, then you're in the right spot. Pop in your earbuds, steal a quiet moment, and let's find time together. Last week, I said something I want to come back to right now. I said until we define what actually matters first, our systems will collapse before we even start. That's what this episode is about. Not the systems, what comes before them. Because here's what I'm hearing from a lot of founders at this stage. Revenue feels inconsistent. It shifts week to week. Some months feel like momentum and some months feel like you're starting over. And the instinct, the very reasonable, very understandable instinct is to fix that by building something. A better CRM, a proper funnel, a content system, a workflow that finally holds everything together. And I want to name what's actually happening when that instinct shows up. Because it's not a motivation problem, it's not a visibility problem. It's not that you need to show up more consistently or believe in yourself harder. You most likely have plenty of potential revenue paths. The problem is none of them are consistent. Some convert sometimes, others go nowhere, and you're not sure which is which. So you keep running all of them, hoping something sticks. That's exhausting. And it's why revenue feels random even when you're genuinely busy. Your revenue is unstable because attention is split. Decisions are unstructured and nothing has clearly defined edges. That's the containment problem. And that's what we're working through today. So here's the assumption most founders are carrying into this conversation, that revenue stability comes from building systems first. That if you just had the right infrastructure in place, the right automation, the right back end, the right process, things would feel less fragile, more predictable, more like a real business. And I want to make a sharp distinction here, because this is where most people get stuck and stay stuck. Infrastructure organizes activity. Clarity defines priority. Those are not the same thing, and doing them out of order doesn't just waste time, it actively makes the instability worse. When you build infrastructure before you've defined what actually matters, you're organizing noise. You're creating more moving parts, more decisions, more things to maintain and check and update. You haven't reduced the weight you're carrying, you've added to it, and you've added it in a way that feels productive, which makes it harder to see. Think about it this way, you have 15 things on your plate. Client work, a new offer, a launch that keeps getting pushed back, a few content streams you're half maintaining, a referral process that kind of exists. Now you build a project management system to hold all 15 of those things. The system works, everything is documented, and you still feel overwhelmed because you're now managing 15 things plus the system. The problem was never that the 15 things weren't organized. The problem was that you were holding 15 things at all. And this is the part that's easy to miss. Adding a system to a cluttered foundation doesn't create stability. It creates the appearance of structure while the underlying fragility stays exactly where it was. The revenue is still tied to your energy, your memory, your capacity to stay on top of it. The system just gives that fragility somewhere to live. That's not an effort problem, that's a structural gap. And more structure doesn't fix a structural gap. Only clarity can. So why does build systems keep feeling like the responsible answer? And honestly, it is the right answer. Just not yet. Not before you've looked clearly at those 15 things on your plate and worked out which ones are actually bringing in revenue and which ones aren't. Because most of them aren't. And building a system to hold all 15 doesn't change that. It just makes the ones that aren't working harder to see. Because when you're in decision overload, when everything lives in your head and nothing is clearly sequenced, your brain reads that friction as a sign that something needs to be built. It feels like what's missing is a container. And building feels like the mature, serious response to instability. So you start researching tools. You look for the platform that will finally make this feel organized. You block out a Saturday to map the workflow. And each time, there's a version of hope in it, that this will be the thing that makes everything feel less fragile. And you're not wrong that a container is missing. The problem is which container your brain is reaching for. Software, workflows, automation, those are containers for process. But the thing that's actually missing first isn't a container for process. It's a container for attention, and those require different inputs. A container for process asks, how do I organize what I'm already doing? A container for attention asks, what actually deserves to be done at all? And some things genuinely need a system right now. The unanswered calls, the unwritten invoices, the inbox that never gets to zero, those are real. A calendar block that protects your admin hour. A simple invoicing process. A voicemail that buys you time. Those fixes exist and they help. But those are admin problems, not revenue problems. And when your time is limited, building systems around the admin, however urgent the friction feels, leaves the actual revenue path still undefined. Which of those 15 things is directly connected to someone paying you? Are you protecting that with your attention? Or is it buried underneath everything else that also feels urgent? Some of the inbox could wait. The undefined conversion path can't. When everything lives in your head, nothing has defined edges. You can't answer, what does my revenue actually depend on right now? What am I holding that doesn't belong here? What can I stop tracking and let go of? Because nothing has been decided. Everything is still open, and open decisions are weight. And without those edges, revenue stays fragile, not because your business is failing, but because you have no clear hierarchy. Everything feels equally urgent, which means your attention gets split across all of it, and the things that actually drive conversion, the follow-up that needed to happen, the conversation that needed a next step, the offer that needed to be positioned clearly, never get the focused energy they need to move. Manual processes, inconsistent follow-up, undefined conversion paths, these aren't character flaws. They're what happens when attention is not contained, when the sequence that moves someone from interested to paying doesn't have a structure holding it in place. That's a design problem, and design problems don't get solved by adding more to the design. So what does a revenue system actually mean? Not software, not a workflow you spend 2 weeks building before you're clear on what you're even selling. A revenue system is containment of your attention before automation of the process. Here's the model I want you to hold. Clarity, containment, infrastructure. In that order. Clarity comes first. This means knowing, not guessing, what your revenue actually depends on right now. And I want to be specific about what this means at your stage, because it's not abstract and it's not theoretical. Think about what actually happens when someone moves from finding you to paying you. There's a sequence. Someone enters your world somehow. They find your content, a referral mentions you, they land on your website. That's one stage. Then something happens. A conversation, a discovery call, a proposal, an email exchange. That's where the decision gets made one way or the other. And then there's what happens after. The follow-up, the check-in, the next step that either moves them forward or lets them quietly drift. Most founders at the 3 to 10K month stage have a version of that sequence, but they haven't named what makes it work. They haven't defined what specifically, in that middle stage, in that conversation or framing moment, actually moves someone from interested to paying. Which means every time they're in that moment, they're making it up slightly differently. And they can't hold it consistently because there's nothing defined to hold. Clarity is about naming that. What is that thing? What is the thing that, when it is present in how you frame your offer or how you run a conversation, actually creates a yes? What's doing the conversion work right now? And are you protecting that with your attention? Or is it getting buried under the 15 other things you're also trying to manage? Containment comes second. Once you know what happens, you build edges around it. You decide what doesn't get your attention this quarter. You stop holding things that mentally don't belong in your current revenue picture. Containment isn't organization. It's protection. Protecting what matters from the noise that doesn't. Then infrastructure or systems comes third. And when it arrives in the right order, it's simple because it's not trying to hold 15 things anymore. It's holding 3, and 3 things don't need a complex system. They need a reliable one. So 3 questions will move you through this model. And I want you to actually sit with these rather than skim past them, because the answers are where the clarity lives. First, what is my revenue actually depending on right now? Not what I want it to depend on, not what you hope will eventually work. What is it actually depending on today? If you're honest, there are probably 1 or 2 things doing most of the real work, and a lot of other things sitting nearby that feel important but aren't actually moving the number. Second, what am I holding mentally that isn't on that list? This is usually where the heaviest weight is. These are things you're tracking, worrying about, half planning, ideas, offers, strategies that aren't part of your current revenue story. They're just taking up cognitive space. Decisions you're making over and over without ever resolving them. And every time you hold on to these things, it costs your attention that could be going towards the thing that's actually working. And the third question, what would I stop holding if I gave myself permission to call it not this quarter? This is the containment question, not about deleting things forever, not about deciding something will never matter. It's about consciously deciding that it doesn't belong in your active attention right now and actually releasing the mental energy you've been spending on it. That third question is where most people stall, because giving yourself permission to not hold something can feel like giving up. But it isn't. It's what makes the rest of the model possible. You can't build edges around what matters until you've decided what doesn't. Stability doesn't come from more built assets. It comes from fewer moving parts being consciously held. A smaller, clearer set of priorities that can actually get the focused attention they need to convert. Nothing needs to be built yet. I want to say that clearly because the pressure to build can feel like urgency, and urgency is hard to argue with. When revenue feels unstable, doing something, anything, feels better than sitting in the discomfort of uncertainty. But most of the time, that urgency isn't telling you to build. It's telling you that you're carrying too much without a clear hierarchy. And the response to that isn't construction, it's definition. Revenue instability at this stage is almost always a containment problem. Attention split across too many undefined priorities. A conversion path that lives in your head instead of a defined sequence. Follow-up that depends on you remembering instead of a structure catching it. An offer that's slightly different every single time because there's no defined edge around what it is and what it isn't. None of that is a motivation problem. None of it is a visibility problem. None of it gets fixed by working harder or showing up more consistently. It gets fixed by deciding what the edges are and then protecting them. The work available to you right now isn't building, it's defining. And defining is faster, lighter, and more useful than anything you could build on top of an unclear foundation. So here's your one action from this episode. Choose one thing you've been carrying mentally, one decision that's been living in your head unresolved, and decide it doesn't matter this quarter. Not forever, just this quarter. Write it down, name it, and set it down. That's a containment decision, and it's the kind of decision that makes every other decision lighter. If you're sitting with this and feeling the weight of how much is currently undefined in your revenue path, that recognition is useful. That's exactly what Time for Living is designed to work through. Not by adding more, but by building the minimal structure that actually holds your conversion path together. So revenue stops depending on your memory and your energy and starts depending on your design. And before you go, just notice this week where you're trying to build systems and infrastructure before you've defined what matters. Don't fix it, don't restructure, just observe the pattern. Because seeing it clearly is what makes the next step possible. And that's building systems. I can't wait to talk to you more about this next week. Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in to the Time for Living podcast today. If this episode inspired you to take action and save time, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a written review and subscribe over on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback means the world to me and helps us reach even more amazing people like you. If you know a friend who needs to hear this message, share this episode with them. And remember, your time is precious, so make every moment count. Until next time, Keep dreaming, keep living, and keep making time for what matters most.